Thanks, Dane. My name is Ali. I'm really excited to be here. Thanks to AWE for giving us this opportunity to speak about real-world implementation of XR and what are the challenges and what are the solutions. And I'm really pleased to be here on stage with John O'Shea of Applied Materials. He is a visionary and thought leader in this space. And IQ3 Connect is a startup out of MIT. We provide an enterprise software platform, and our goal is really to make enterprise XR really easy with all the complexities around the data and deployments and just making it easy to use. Those are the problems we are solving with our XR platform, and I'll be talking a little bit more about that. But before I do that, let me hand it off to John to tell us his perspective on operationalizing XR in a large enterprise. John?
Thank you. Thank you, Ali. So I want to tell you a small bit about Applied Materials. Many of you may not know about this company, but I bet every one of your devices was made on our machines. So what we do is we create machines that we sell to the semiconductor and display industries to produce pretty much every chip and display in the world. We're also using our nanoscale engineering in new areas, one of which I wanted to talk about, which is very relevant to this conference. And we're working on engineered optics or flat optics. So I have a short video here that talks about some of the really innovative solutions we're working on that's going to power the next generation of XR devices.
A new dawn of human-computer interaction is arriving. Applied Materials is leveraging over 50 years of leadership in semiconductor technology to engineer flat, nanostructured optical devices. This technology allows us to move beyond the bounds of traditional refractive optics. We can now shrink previously bulky augmented reality systems down to everyday scale, smaller and lighter than ever before. With our expertise in powerful modeling and design, nanoscale materials engineering, metrology solutions, and tool manufacturing, we're unleashing new opportunities in AR devices and digital experiences that bring the future into focus.
So the XR industry is really interesting to Applied from an equipment point of view, but the approach that my team took is we should be using these technologies to help across the business. So in 2016, I formed what we call a Center of Excellence that's focused on applying technologies in XR to help from product development to product support. And these are some of the use cases that we've been using VR and AR to help across the business. What we've found in the last few years in particular that our early investments have really paid dividends. When we couldn't travel and combine that with the big shortage of semiconductor chips in the world right now, we needed to continue to support our customers and continue to grow our business. So we have hired a lot of people over the last few years, and the challenge was how do we train those people, how do we support our customers when we can't travel. So all of the work we had been doing really helped us to train those people, allow us to scale, provide remote support without being able to travel. And it helped really with business continuity and efficiencies. But there's many challenges that I wanted to talk about that we've overcome, and some we're still working on. This is still a journey, but one that I'm sure you've all come across when you're trying to make a change like this is everyone's super busy and it's really hard to get things to change. So I'm going to talk about some of the approaches that we took to overcome some of these challenges. Other challenges is there's a gazillion buzzwords out there, right? Most of us here probably know all of those words, but to our internal users, it's super confusing. I explain them. Tomorrow they'll mix up AR and VR again. So I think onus is on us to really try to simplify those terms, try to use the right technologies to solve real problems, and not to hype things, right? So the hype really has a negative effect, right? I talked to a lot of people in my company and they see, oh, VR was something that was going to be amazing. It was promising all these things, but that's something that came and gone. So these perceptions are stuff we have to fight and show them that there really is a lot of productivity and they are really useful today. But these are some of the headwinds that we face. And then there's perceptions that VR is complicated, and sometimes it really is. And I get different business use cases, and honestly, sometimes AR and VR is not the right solution, and that's okay too, right? So we want to focus in on where can it really make a difference, where can it really help. My public service announcement for today is please don't show new users roller coaster experiences, right? I've had people from board of directors coming up to me. I'm trying to show them stuff, and they're like, oh, I'm not going to touch VR. It made me sick last time I used it, and I probe a little bit more, and someone showed them a roller coaster experience. What I love to show people is something like Tilt Brush, where it's really simple, it's very intuitive, and as soon as people put the headset on, they immediately see the value of this new spatial medium. And you can just see the smile on their faces, nobody gets sick, and it just shows them why this is such a revolutionary technology. The framework that I use to try to change the company into adopting these technologies is, one of the frameworks I use is from a book called Leading Change by John Kotter. And there's 8 steps in it, which can be broken into 3 main sections. The first one really is unfreezing the existing processes. And to do that, you need to have a reason for doing that. You need to have a vision. Sometimes what happens is we jump to maybe step 6 in this process. We do a proof of concept. The people involved with it see it being as something was really cool, was really exciting, but it kind of gets stuck in that proof of concept phase and doesn't scale. So without having these foundational layers taken care of, usually POCs don't go anywhere. But after you have unfrozen the existing, you got to make that change happen, and focusing on real value use cases, turning down a lot of use cases that might be cool to do, but really won't stand the test of time. And then building on those, advertising those early wins has been really critical. But often what can happen is, I worry sometimes if we put our foot off the gas, will this change continue to stick? So you've got to refreeze the new processes and continue to keep your eye on those, but so you can scale and work on the next things. So this could be, a talk in itself. I'm just briefly going over it, but I found doesn't have to be this framework, but having a framework for change is really vital with this. So along with the change management, there's many technical challenges, and I'll touch on a couple of them here. Some of these I want to highlight because I think people in this audience that can help with these as well. It's not really easy to use a lot of these devices in enterprise. Most of them have started with a gaming first focus. Things like say in the Windows Mixed Reality portal, which you have to open if you use those devices, our users are presented with lots of games. And I'm always trying to break the connotation between virtual reality and AR and gaming, and it being a real tool for enterprise. Some people like to call them toys and gadgets. I try to use this as a tool to get work done. So it doesn't help when everything is in our user's face, presenting it as a gaming device. There's also a lot of change, right? A lot of good things happening, but that change also presents problems. Getting availability to the device is a problem in different regions. So a lot of my dev team is in India, and today I can't get a HoloLens locally, or I can't get a Quest locally there. So it makes it really difficult to develop in those areas. And our IT companies are not used to some of the high-end PCs that we need to render locally some of our CAD data. Other issues is, how do you make all of this stuff play nicely with our existing IT systems. So as I mentioned, a lot of the stuff is gaming focused. So today I need Steam, which companies hate. I need Steam VR. I need Windows Mixed Reality for Steam VR. In this Windows Mixed Reality stack, there's at least 5 different components there that have to all be updated. Some of them features on demand, some of them on Windows Store. It's a complete pain to manage them. We've worked around those, but it's a constant battle to work around them. So there's a lot of things that this community can do to make XR scale in the enterprise, and it's not impossible. It's quite easy. MDMs for managing all-in-one devices is problematic. Quest has made a mess of this, where in 2017 they had the Oculus for Business, which was hard to even enroll in. Then they came out with their new Oculus for Business in 2019, and then in 21 they killed the Oculus for Business to launch their next focus on the future, whatever that means. So as of today, you can't enroll in any Oculus for Business, so we have to look at other MDM solutions and circumvent some of the native software on the Quest. But what we've learned is that all of this stuff is going to change, and we can simplify a lot of this by leaning into open standards such as OpenXR and WebXR. This helps us as the hardware changes and helps us to future-proof our investments. The other thing I wanted to highlight was the challenges of leveraging your CAD data. Some companies, I feel, don't do this justice, and they kind of trivialize that it's very easy to get your CAD data into XR, and it's really not. It's especially with the size of the data sets that we're dealing with. The types of data that we're dealing with in VR is a mesh format, and the data we're dealing with in CAD is NURB space. So bringing that data across and preserving the hierarchy of the data is really important. And we found if this doesn't scale, users are not going to spend the time to leverage this data. If we're doing a design review and it's going to take us a week to process that data, the design has already changed, and so our users won't adopt it. We've got to make it really easy for them. So building that pipeline is really, really important for all of this. We see that CAD is some of our digital assets that can be used in so many different ways if we have a strong pipeline to leverage that data. So with that, I hand it back to Ali, who will talk about how he overcame some of these challenges.
Yeah, thanks, John. That was very enlightening. So we talked about hardware proofing. We talked about the data and then the IT integration in a global organization that spans several continents. And most of us are used to sort of when we think about putting on your Oculus, you download an app and off you go. But there's a whole other opportunity out there with web browsers. And around maybe 2016, a lot of visionary people at Google and Mozilla started working on open standards to allow devices to interface with browsers. And today, WebVR when it started, but today it's WebXR or WebAR, has really matured to allow and support a whole range of devices. So you can plug in an Oculus and you can plug in a HoloLens, and they could be working together on the same platform. And this also opens up other opportunities where you've got a global organization, and tell me an enterprise which doesn't have a browser. So it's like zero install. Now imagine if you had a software that could leverage that. You can scale into the organization with very little friction, and you don't have to worry about downloading apps or getting through IT and so on. And today, the nice thing about the WebXR API is that it's fairly stable enough for production use. And we worked through that. We worked through many challenges. But today, it is something that is in production use in the enterprise environment. And hopefully, we'll see even other ecosystems, like Safari, will be supporting that standard very soon. Now, if you think about WebXR examples, what comes to mind typically is you see social collaboration, Meta, and Mozilla Hubs, and so on. These work very nicely in the web browser, but they're very lightweight 3D content. So a lot of the WebXR has been focused around consumer applications. The question is, can we make it work reliably in a production enterprise environment with complex data? And that's when you come in and say, okay, can I bring my massive CAD model, whether it's an automotive transmission or whether it's a massive semiconductor machine with 10 to 50 times more data and thousands of discrete objects that you want to sort of process in a way that preserves that hierarchy and that relationship back to your design intent. Because if you lose that, then as John said, the engineers will just throw it and then you're back to square one. So this is a really critical important thing to consider in this kind of a browser environment and to make this kind of 3D industrial content work reliably in a fast and efficient way. And then, once you've solved the hard problem of actually making this work with all of this complex content, and you have these low-power web-based workspaces or 3D environments, which you can launch maybe even hundreds or thousands of them, they have to live within the enterprise environment. So that is another challenge where, how do you address things like the IT integration? How do you, integrate into single sign-on so that many people can easily access and use this, and none of this relies on a toolkit. So it's a kind of out of the box. You should be able to, have your users upload the CAD data, process it, and simply create these experiences that you can share with a simple link, and they work on the normal internet. This is another consideration that when you have a global enterprise, it has to work in normal internet environments, and someday we'll have faster internet, but today that is a really practical consideration. And for enterprises to really see a benefit, it has to scale. It has to work across hundreds and thousands of users. And another thing that the WebXR browser-based environment opens up is a whole new types of business models, right? Where today you don't need to download an app or you don't need to send a license to somebody, but I can just send a link to my supplier or a customer or to anyone, and they can jump into my XR space and collaborate seamlessly without requiring any kind of app or download. And that's the power of bringing open standards and a browser-based open environment to work in a production industrial environment to solve some of the challenges that John spoke about today. So with that, I'd like to stop here and see if anybody has questions, John.
Yeah.
Yeah? Thank you.
Hi there.
Hi.
Thanks very much for coming. Really great to hear people actually deploying these technologies in the real world. My name's Devin Copley. I'm with a company called Avatur. We do software, XR software for enterprise as well. And we are seeing, you touched on this dilemma in your slide, a real problem with what platform to deploy. We had a lot of people who were into Oculus for Business. That's been abandoned. It was always problematic anyway in Europe. We've been working with Arbor XR for MDM. I just wonder if you could share your personal experience just in the last 18 months, what's happened as far as choosing which devices to use and which platforms to use to manage them.
Sure.
Yeah, John, go ahead.
So I would say there's not one device that fits all use cases. So in some cases when we're processing massive CAD data sets, we're doing that on Windows PC with what we've chosen is Windows mixed reality devices, which started out very promising because it was going to be built into the Windows ecosystem. And I feel like Microsoft has left it linger really and hasn't taken as much advantage. There's really only HP making headsets right now, which is a nice headset. But for other cases, I have a new use case that I'm working on right now on an all-in-one device. And I'm using MDM solutions like you described to manage those. Today, I would say that it's more of a niche thing for me, and I'm managing more outside the our IT infrastructure with the plan to bring it into our IT infrastructure. I know I'm going to hit a lot of headwinds there with it's an Android device, how do we manage security? So there's pain points there. But we also use iOS devices for some of our AR stuff, and we use HoloLenses as well. HoloLens has been one of the easier devices to manage on the network. It's more enterprise friendly. But hopefully that gives you, and I'm happy to talk more as well if.
I can say a few words. I mean, from a technical implementation standpoint, we've been able to achieve a fair amount of uniformity between Oculus, Windows Mixed Reality, and HTC. And so if it's carefully implemented, you can make that fairly device independent. And then obviously, if you're on a web browser, you can use it on a tablet and so on and so forth. That's a whole other beast. But within these, the VR ecosystem, it is possible to sort of leverage WebXR to have a fairly agnostic software platform.
Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? All right.
Hey, I'm Deb. I'm wondering, how do you address the different security issues? So I'm finding a lot of times the SDKs aren't enterprise ready, or we can't trust the cameras on device because you're in a private setting. How have you been addressing those?
Yeah, it's been a challenge. On a kind of practical level, what I've found I've had to do is have essentially a subnet outside of the regular enterprise network to do proof of concept type of work and to prove out this is what we want to do, this is how we're going to do it, this is what we need to have open. And then once I've proven this is what I want to do, I'm in a better situation where I can work with my IT group to go and say, okay, these are the specific things that I need. What used to happen before was it was a different approach where I would need to get all of that approved first on the regular enterprise environment, which could be 6, 9, and sometimes never happen. And in some cases, what I was experimenting with wasn't ever going to become production anyway. So I feel like it's still a battle, but I think enterprises need to have that sandbox where creative teams can do this type of work and then work with IT teams to bring it in. On the SDK front, yeah, we have to go through, when we start to scale things, we have to do all the checks and balances on that. There's concerns over cameras and things that we can only use them in certain environments and stuff, but yeah, I guess there's no magic silver bullet to that, but.
I think we have time for one more.
Me, I'm here. So, do you find that it's easier to have a team that's dedicated specifically for like handling all things XR? So I feel like there's so many things that, like, me personally, if I'm trying to build up a program, I don't know so many things about like data privacy and IT and whatever. So is it better to have like an expert from each team be like part of a XR exclusive team, or have like people that are like hired just to do this?
Sure. So I can say what I found worked for us was we've got a great IT team, but their focus is on keeping the rest of the business working and protecting our IP, and so this is a different focus. So what I try to do is, what can my team uniquely do, and where can I leverage other parts of the company that they uniquely provide value? So I know that the rest of the business hasn't got the bandwidth or the kind of mind share to focus on XR solutions, so I really focus on that. And then I don't want to reinvent the wheel in other groups, so I use my training group to work with them to do the operational part of it and the deployment. They know who they need to train and what classes, and so I think it's that type of combination of leveraging other resources within your company, because I don't think you can bring all of those into one group, or it's very hard to initially starting off like that. But over time, I've built different areas of expertise like CAD experts, learning development experts, software developers, some of them from gaming backgrounds, UI, UX people, but specializing on XR. So, no problem.
Awesome. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much.
Ollie.
Thank you.
Thank you.